What was your I shouldn't have said that moment when talking to a customer? In high school I worked as a dry cleaner. Woman comes in. Her dad died. Wants me to iron the suit he would be buried in. I ask her what kind of starch she would like. She asks what I recommend. Capital I. In all of my infinite wisdom. Said well I'm assuming he won't be moving around much so a light starch is fine, and then immediately apologized and mentally died inside. I'm a dude. And had somewhat long hair in high school. I was working at the local supermarket and this older woman, 50s or 60s, asked if I was wearing a wig. I responded by saying no. And replied with the same question. After which she gave me an appalled look like I had called her a hunt or something. When I was 16 I worked at an amusement park in California. This family was waiting at the front of the line to go on my roller coaster. The dad just said hi. We're from Wyoming. Without thinking I sarcastically said wow. My favorite place. A guy came into where I worked and the first thing he said was something like, do you give discounts? Not any particular discount. He was just being a cheap ass. Somehow. Without skipping a beat I said for what? Showing up? I don't think he was happy with that. After the standard customer rich fest. Ending with and I am never shopping here again. I gave her a smile and said, thank you. We sure would appreciate that. She stood there with her mouth open while I moved on to the next customer. I used to work at Jimmy John's. When we made a drive-thru order, the person who wraps the sandwich would bag it and toss it across the restaurant to the drive-thru person to hand it out after they took the payment. I was the drive-thru person and dropped the wrapped and bagged sandwich. Without thinking, I just picked it up and handed it to the customer. He goes, you're seriously going to serve me that? My instant reaction was to ask, oh, you saw that? He was not amused. A customer tried to exchange cash with me and I told her no and explained that we can't as a policy to protect against fast change artists. She really suspiciously, in an exasperated voice, was like, but I'm obviously not a fast change artist. And without thinking that sounds like something a fast change artist would say. A customer came up to me asking about the shoes that were on sale for $29.99. I walked over to the fixture and showed him the sign said the jeans were on sale, not the shoes. I then said sometimes you have to read the whole sign. My coworker had to turn around and walk off so he wouldn't hear her line. I am really surprised I didn't get talked to about that. I was on a call with a customer who was complaining and absolutely irate. I had only been on the job for a few weeks and was becoming flustered. There was literally nothing I could do to calm this person down or get him to accept my answers. I was finally about to get him off the line when he made a sarcastic comment to the extent of, wow, thanks. You've been such a great help. In my rush to say no problem or you're welcome, I ended up saying your problem and hanging up. He called several times after that and I just ignored the calls because I was so exhausted. I got baited by a client when I was working reception at a law firm. We're supposed to screen calls for the attorneys and usually say they're in a meeting or they're with another client if the attorney doesn't have time to talk with that person right that moment. A client calls reception. Wants to edit, complain about my boss, the big boss. Bossman that never takes client calls on the first go. Usually. She's screaming that that guy, my boss, is currently on her front lawn stealing her lawn ornaments. I don't know what to do with this other than say, mom, I can assure you he's not. He's standing a few feet away from me right now. She stops screaming immediately. Well, young man, perhaps you could let me speak to him. I froze. I felt like an idiot and had to explain to my boss, who was in fact right next to me. Luckily he laughed it off. Said some clients are crazy. I didn't get in trouble or anything. I just felt foolish. Edit, as I wrote it originally it reads that the woman called and asked to talk to my boss, while simultaneously claiming my boss was in her yard. What happened was they called our office pretending to complain about my boss being in the yard. Then sprang the trap on me when I said he was there. Hopefully that clears that up a bit. While working in a deli, a customer asked to try the Polish ham. She said she didn't care for it and would take some Black Forest ham. Once again the Germans triumph over the Polish. Turns out she was Polish. Oops. Sounds like something I would do. I would probably say something worse like blitzed again. Though. A lady was complaining about her parents-in-law and told me to make sure I like the parents of whoever I marry. So I said, oh my fiance's parents are dead, so I lucked out. She did not laugh. Not what I said but how I said it. Waiting tables and I get this friendly looking couple. I walk up and before I can start with the pleasantries the guy sees me. And in a heavy Australian accent. He says, hi there mate. How are you? I was thrown off by the accent and by being interrupted before making an introduction, and for whatever reason, my mind could only focus on the accent. And so, when I went to respond I did it in an Australian accent. Not too bad mate. Yourself. I realized I was doing it as it was leaving my mouth but I couldn't stop. I was convinced I was gonna get pinched square in the face. Turns out my fake Australian accent isn't bad. The guy is delighted to meet an Australian. Asks if I'm in America on the work program. Now I'm stuck. If I admit I'm not Australian, I'm worried he'll be offended even though I didn't mean to offend him. If not, I have to play this part for the next hour. Yeah, I committed to the role. Got a 40% tip though, so that was kinda nice and worth the stress. I used to work in the hand call center and this woman's package didn't arrive on the day our website said it would. Bearing in mind this was an order for hand basic items which came to about $50. She said that because she had to take a day off work we now owed her lost wages which amounted to $850. I said to her, you took a day off work where you would have earned $850 to wait at home for a package that is worth $50. Do you seriously expect me to believe that? Long story short, she hung up when I saw through the obvious bullshit. I answered a customer call when I worked at a movie theater and it was a couple asking me for directions to the theater from wherever they were. They were driving and getting frustrated with me. And I was kind of getting frustrated with them for being mad at me when I assumed they were talking to me on a smartphone. So at some point I said something like, most people would just use the internet. They did not like that. This is my time to shine. Was 17. Working at a Meijer. Slightly older gentleman comes up with a basket on his arm. Starts unloading groceries. Nothing too unusual. Except as I'm packing the bags on the carousel. He's struggling to keep up reloading his little basket. He didn't seem old enough to really be struggling. But I figured maybe something was wrong and so I innocently asked, do you need a hand? Guy shoots me a look and stares for eye contact at me for like a minute. I'm confused. Thinking maybe he misheard me. Maybe a little cognitively impaired. And open my mouth to repeat myself. He smiles. Pulls down the sleeve of his shirt. And reveals he in fact has a prosthetic hand. I never understood the phrase melt into the ground until that moment. I was almost in tears, I was so embarrassed. But fortunately the guy recognized I wasn't being a glibbershat. I was just trying to help him. And was kind enough to let me off the hook. I was talking with a customer on the phone and giving her answers she didn't like. Then this grown woman, just starts whining. Not like using words with a whiny voice but actually doing a ruan kind of whining. I've worked with toddlers a lot so it was just instinct to say back to her, mom, please use your words, as if I was talking to a 3-year-old. It did not go over well. I sold housewares at masses. When you purchased something I'd be like, now go and bake a cake. When they bought a mixer or bet you can't wait to get those wrinkles out. When their purchase was an iron. One night a middle-aged older man bought a meat pounder. I rung him up and said, now go home and beat your meat. Oops. I was working at a client site. And just pissed at them. The problem was that my company ducked up. Our inspector was an idiot who did nothing. And I was set up to fail. So I am in a meeting and they are demanding all this free stuff. And I blurt out, "We're a business, not a charity." They loved it. And the head Texan was all like, "Hey big boy, you've grown some big gonads." Weird thing is they really helped me find a new job. I was very pregnant, about 6.5 months pregnant with twins, working at a call center, and I got a cold transfer from customer relations from a super rude customer. I greet him nicely and he interrupts me and asks, "Can you see all my information and what I need, or do I need to repeat it all over again?" Starts yelling and rants for about 3 minutes, and being the sensitive bull I was, I told him, "Sir, this is the first time I've talked to you. You just got transferred and need time to read the notes, but it's very unfair that you're treating me like this. I was being super polite and you're yelling at me for no reason." Now it was my rant for about 2 minutes. "I will place you on hold and I'll read the notes." Okay. When I put him on hold, I was convinced that if my superior was listening I was going to be in trouble, cause in CS they want you to let people walk over you, and this customer was going to complain about me. But surprisingly, when I came back from hold he sounded ashamed. He apologized to me and admitted he had been a big dick to me for no reason and that he wanted to start all over, and the rest of the call was super smooth, but I was very scared while on hold. Coffee shop. Woman orders a latte and I ask if she wants full fat or skimmed milk. She asks, "You don't have a semi, do you?" I reply, "No. It's just the way I'm standing." She did not look amused. I was a waitress in college and super slammed one night. I checked on a table after what had been a while and said, "I'm so sorry about that. Can I get you some refills?" Well, this guy just begins this rant. "Yeah, we've been here forever. We haven't gotten many refills. And this was the worst pulled pork sandwich I've ever had in my life." And he went on and on about this ducking pulled pork sandwich being so awful, but he ate the entire thing. Like I said, I was slammed and I probably listened to him itch for a whole 2 minutes, which seems like 10 to hungry customers. When he finally shut up I said, "I don't cook the food, dude." He was pissed and ended up getting his food carved. He came in 2 weeks later and I ran the food to his table, not his waitress that time, and he immediately started itching that his mac and cheese was cold. This guy ordered 3 coffees. I brought him 2. Immediately after ordering, so he asked where his third one was. First response out my mouth was, "I only have 2 arms." I've done this to customers. Carrying 3 plates and have extra napkins tucked under my arm. Plus spare cutlery in my apron. Crusty custy goes UHH. We ordered X as well. I just put on my most saccharine smile, look apologetic and say, "I'm so sorry, but I only have so many hands." I shouldn't have done that actually. I was rinsing beer glasses behind the bar with one of those giant high pressure sprayers that kind of looked like a small shower. A guy was mad that we wouldn't return his girlfriend's obviously fake ID. He looked like he was about to come across the bar. Without thinking, I turned, still holding the sprayer, and hit him full on in the face. He left. I didn't get fired. I worked at a hotel as a front desk. This group of family comes in to check in and I hand them their room keys. I see the father go out the door, but I didn't see the rest of the family take a left to our seating area lobby. Well, the father just swings open the door and doesn't close it. I let out a sigh and say, "I hate lazy as people that don't close the door to my coworker." I see in the corner of my left eye the rest of the family giving me the death stare. I received a complaint the next morning. Was making casual conversation with a customer after a meeting and they had mentioned how disappointed they were in our QC at the time. I quickly remembered a funny story about our previous quality guy not knowing how to read drawings or what the difference was between circumference and diameter. That didn't help their impression of us. Edit, disappointed. Not disappointing. I have 2. Once I was a cashier at a supermarket and the customer was involved with the church and asked, "Do you have any kind of preacher discount?" And I said, "No. We're all pretty godless here at Super One," the name of the grocery store. His wife thought it was pretty funny, but he didn't. Second one was at a large retail store. We sold fish there in the pet department. One of the tanks was empty and a customer wanted whichever fish was supposed to go in there. She said, "You're out of those? You don't have any in the back?" And I said, "We used to keep them in the back room, but they surprisingly died within minutes." She didn't think it was funny. But for real. What a stupid question. A lot of customers have zero idea of what the back actually is. In this case, I was the customer. I had run by my roommate's work to drop off something to her and buy something. Since both her and her manager were working the cash registers, I asked, "Who's checking me out?" Without blinking, her manager goes, "I've been checking you out all night." I left and he turned to my roommate. Did I say what I think I did? Turns out he was high on pain meds. But I still got a great story out of it.